112, 1975, Beyond Boredom and Anxiety. San Francisco, Jossie Bass, 1978. Attention and the Holistic Approach to Behavior. In K.S. Pope and J.L. Singer, eds. The Stream of Consciousness, p. 335-58. New York, Plenum. 1981a, Leisure and Socialization. Social Forces 60, 332-40. 1981b, Some Paradoxes in the Definition of Play. In A. Cheska, ed. Play as Context, p. 1426. New York, Leisure Press. 1982a, Towards a Psychology of Optimal Experience. In L. Wheeler, ed. Review of Personality and Social Psychology, Vol. 2. Beverly Hills, Calif. Sage. 1982b, Learning, Flow, and Happiness. In R. Gross, ed. Invitation to Lifelong Learning, pp. 167-87. New York, Fowlett. 1985a, Emergent Motivation and the Evolution of the Self. In D. Kleiber and M. H. Mayer, eds. Motivation in Adulthood, pp. 93-113. Greenwich, Conn. J.I. Press. 1985b, Reflections on Enjoyment, Perspectives in Biology and Medicine, 28-4, 469-97. 1987, The Flow Experience. In M. Eliade, ed. The Encyclopedia of Religion, Vol. 5, 361-63. New York, Macmillan. 1988, The Ways of Genes and Memes. Reality Club Review 1, 107-28. 1989, Consciousness for the 21st Century, paper presented at the ELCA meeting, year 2000 and beyond, March 30 to April 2, St. Charles, Illinois. Csikszentmihalyi, M. and BD-O, 1979, Life Themes, A Theoretical and Empirical Exploration of Their Origins and Effects. Journal of Humanistic Psychology, 1945-63. Csikszentmihalyi and Csikszentmihalyi S., eds. 1988, Optimal Experience, Psychological Studies of Flow in Consciousness, New York, Cambridge University Press. Csikszentmihalyi M. and Getzels J. W., 1989, Creativity and Problem Finding. In F. H. Farley and R. W. Neperud, eds. The Foundations of Aesthetics, pp. 91-116. New York, Prager. Csikszentmihalyi M., Getzels J. W. and Conn, 1984, Talent and Achievement, A Longitudinal Study of Artists. A Report to the Spencer Foundation and to the MacArthur Foundation. Chicago, University of Chicago. Csikszentmihalyi M. and Grafe, 1979, Flow and the Quality of Experience in Everyday Life. Unpublished manuscript, University of Chicago. 1980, The Experience of Freedom in Daily Life. American Journal of Community Psychology, 8, 401-14. Csikszentmihalyi M. and Kubay R. 1981, Television and the Rest of Life. Public Opinion Quarterly 45, 377-28. Csikszentmihalyi M. and Larson R. 1978, Intrinsic Rewards in School Crime. Crime and Delinquency 24 through 322-35. 1984, Being Adolescent, Conflict and Growth in the Teenage Years, New York, Basic Books. 1987, Validity and Reliability of the Experience Sampling Method. Journal of Nervous and Mental Disease 175-9, 526-36. Csikszentmihalyi M., Larson R., and Prescott S., 1977. The Ecology of Adolescent Activity and Experience, Journal of Youth and Adolescence 6, 281-94. Csikszentmihalyi M. and Lefevre J., 1987. The Experience of Work and Leisure, 3rd Canadian Leisure Research Conference, Halifax, NS, May 22-25. 1989, Optimal Experience in Work and Leisure, Journal of Personality and Social Psychology 56, 5, 822. Csikszentmihalyi M. and Massimini F., 1985. On the Psychological Selection of Biocultural Information, New Ideas in Psychology through 115-38. Csikszentmihalyi M. and Nakamura J. 1989. The Dynamics of Intrinsic Motivation, in R. Ames and C. Ames, eds. Handbook of Motivation Theory and Research, Vol. 3, p. 45-71, New York, Academic Press. Csikszentmihalyi M. and Rothunda K. 1989. The Psychology of Wisdom and Evolutionary Interpretation. In R. J. Sternberg, ed. The Psychology of Wisdom, New York, Cambridge University Press. Csikszentmihalyi M. and Robinson R. in Press, The Art of Seeing, Malibu Calif., J. P. Getty Press. Csikszentmihalyi M. and Rochberg Halton E. 1981, The Meaning of Things, Domestic Symbols and the Self, New York, Cambridge University Press. Coolin S. 1906, Games of North American Indians, 24th Annual Report, Washington, D.C., Bureau of American Ethnology. Cushing, F.H., 1896, Outlines of Zuni Creation Myths. 13th Annual Report, Washington, D.C., Bureau of American Ethnology. Dalby, L.C., 1983, Geisha, Berkeley, University of California Press. Damon W. and Hart D. 1982. The Development of Self-Understanding from Infancy Through Adolescence. Child Development 53 Hadert 31-57. Dante A. 1965. The Divine Comedy. Trans. G. L. Bickerstein. Cambridge, Harvard University Press. David F. N. 1962. Games, Gods, and Gambling. New York, Hafner. Davis, J. A. 1959. A Formal Interpretation of the Theory of Relative Deprivation. Sociometry 2282X. Dawkins R. 1976. The Selfish Gene. New York, Oxford University Press. DeCharms R. 1968. Personal Causation, The Internal Affective Determinants of Behavior. New York Academic Press. Desai E. L. and Ryan R. M. 1985. Intrinsic Motivation and Self-Determination in Human Behavior. New York, Plenum Press. Delafave A. and Massimini F. 1988. Modernization and the Changing Contexts of Flow in Work and Leisure. In M. Csikszentmihalyi and I. S. Csikszentmihalyi eds. Optimal Experience, Studies of Flow in Consciousness, pp. 193-213. New York, Cambridge University Press. De Roberti E. 1878, La Sociologie, Paris, de Santillana, 1861-1970. The Origins of Scientific Thought, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Devereux E. 1970, Socialization in Cross-Cultural Perspective, Comparative Study of England, Germany, and the United States. In R. Hill, R. Koenig, eds. Families in East and West, Socialization Process and Kinship Ties, pp. 76, Paris, Mouton. Diener E. 1979. De-individuation, the absence of self-awareness and self-regulation in group members, in P. Paulus ed., The Psychology of Group Influence, Hillsdale, N.J. Earlbaum, 1979. De-individuation, self-awareness and disinhibition, Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 37, 1160-71. Diener E., Horwitz J., and Emmons R. A. 1985, Happiness of the Very Wealthy, Social Indicators Research 16, 263-74. Dobzhansky, T. 1962. Mankind Evolving, The Evolution of the Human Species, New Haven, Yale University Press. 1967, The Biology of Ultimate Concern, New York, New American Library. Dragachesco, D. 1906, Du Rôle de Individu dans le Déterminisme Social, Paris. Dulles, F.R., 1965, A History of Recreation, America Learns to Play, Second ed., Inglewood Cliffs, N.J., Prentice Hall. Durkheim E. 1897-1951, Suicide, New York, Free Press. 1912-1967. The Elementary Forms of Religious Life, New York, Free Press. Easterlin, R.A. 1974. Does Economic Growth Improve the Human Lot? Some Empirical Evidence. In P.A. David and M. Abramovitz, eds. Nations and Households in Economic Growth. New York, Academic Press. Ekblad, G. 1981. Scheme Theory, A Conceptual Framework for Cognitive Motivational Processes. London, Academic Press. Ekman, P. 1972. Universals and Cultural Differences in Facial Expressions of Emotions. In Current Theory and Research on Motivation, Nebraska Symposium on Motivation, Vol. 19, 207-83. Lincoln, University of Nebraska Press. Eliad M. 1969, Yoga, Immortality and Freedom. Princeton, Princeton University Press. Emda R. 1980, Toward a Psychoanalytic Theory of Affect. In S. Greenspan and E. Pollock eds. The Course of Life. Washington, D.C., U.S. Government Printing Office. Encyclopedia Britannica, 1985, 15th ed., Chicago, Encyclopedia Britannica, Inc. Erickson, E.H., 1950, Childhood and Society, New York, W. W. Norton. 1958, Young Man Luther, New York, W. W. Norton. 1969, Gandhi's Truth, On the Origins of Militant Nonviolence, New York, W. W. Norton. Evans Pritchard, E. E., 1940-1978, The Newer, New York, Oxford University Press. Eysenck M. W. 1982, Attention and Arousal, Berlin, Springer Verlag. Ferenczi S. 1950, Sunday Neuroses. In S. Ferenczi ed., Further Contributions to the Theory of Psychoanalysis, pp. 174-77, London, Hogarth Press. Fine R. 1956, Chess and Chess Masters. Psychoanalysis 3777, Fior G. 1973, Antonio Gramsci, Life of a Revolutionary, New York. Schocken Books. Fisher A. L. 1969, The Essential Writings of Merleau-Ponty, New York, Harcourt Brace. Fortune R. F. 1932-1963, Sorcerers of Dobu, New York, Dutton. Fox V. 1977, Is Adolescence a Phenomenon of Modern Times? Journal of Psychiatry 1, 271-90. Frankel V. 1963, Man's Search for Meaning, New York, Washington Square. 1978, The Unheard Cry for Meaning, New York, Simon & Schuster. Freeman M. 1989. Paul Ricoeur on Interpretation, The Model of the Text and the Idea of Development. Human Development 28, 295-312. Freeman M., Larson R., and Csikszentmihalyi M. 1986, Immediate Experience and Its Recollection. Merrill Palmer, Quarterly 32, 267-85. Freeman M. and Robinson R. E. in Press. The Development Within, An Alternative Approach to the Study of Lives. New Ideas in Psychology. Freud S. 1921. Massenpsychologie und Ich-Analyse. Vienna, Gesammelte Schriften 6 261. 1930-1961. Civilization and Its Discontents. New York, Norton. Frieda, N.H. 1986. The Emotions. New York, Cambridge University Press. Gallup, G.H. 1976. Human Needs and Satisfactions, A Global Survey. Public Opinion Quarterly 40, 459-67. Gardner H. 1983. Frames of Mind. New York Basic Books. Garrett H. E. 1941. Great Experiments in Psychology, Boston, Appleton Century Crofts. Ghetto M. 1986-88, Psychoanalytic Perspectives on Art, Vol. 1, 1986, Vol. 2, 1987, Vol. 3, 1988, Hillsdale N.J., Analytic Press. Geertz C. 1973, The Interpretation of Culture, New York Basic Books. Gendlin E. T. 1962, Experiencing and the Creation of Meaning, Glencoe Free Press, 1981. Focusing, New York Bantam. General Social Survey, 1989, March, Chicago National Opinion Research Center. Gergen K. and Gergen M. 1983, Narrative of the Self, in T. Sarbin and K. Scheib, Eads, Studies in Social Identity, p. 254-73, New York, Prager. 1984, The Social Construction of Narrative Accounts, in K. Gergen and M. Gergen, Eads, Historical Social Psychology, 173-89, Hillsdale N.J. Earlbaum. Getzels, J.W. and Csikszentmihalyi M. 1965. Creative Thinking in Art Students, The Process of Discovery. HEW Cooperative Research Report, S080, University of Chicago, 1976. The Creative Vision, A Longitudinal Study of Problem Finding in Art, New York, Wiley Interscience. Gilpin, L. 1948, Temples in Yucatan, New York, Hastings House. Gladwin, T. 1970. East is a Big Bird, Navigation and Logic on Puluit Atoll, Cambridge, Harvard University Press. Glick, P.G. 1979. Children of Divorced Parents in Demographic Perspective. Journal of Social Issues 35 170-82. Gortzel V. and Gortzel M.G. 1962. Cradles of Eminence. Boston, Little Brown. Goffman E. 1969. Strategic Interaction. Philadelphia, University of Pennsylvania Press. 1974. Frame Analysis, an Essay on the Organization of Experience. New York, Harper, S.L. Rowe. Gombrich E.H. 1954. Psychoanalysis and the History of Art. International Journal of Psychoanalysis 35 1-11, 1979. The Sense of Order. Ithaca N.Y., Cornell University Press. Gouldner A.W. 1968. The Sociologist as Partisan, Sociology and the Welfare State. American Sociologist 3 103-16. Grafe R. 1978. An Analysis of the Person by Situation Interaction through Repeated Measures. Unpublished doctoral dissertation, University of Chicago. Grafe R., Csikszentmihalyi M., and Giannino, S.M. 1983, Measuring Intrinsic Motivation in Everyday Life, Leisure Studies 255-68. Grafe R., McManama Giannino S., and Csikszentmihalyi M., 1981, Energy Consumption in Leisure and Perceived Happiness, in J.D. Clayton et al., Eads, Consumers and Energy Conservation, New York, Prager. Graves R. 1960, The White Goddess, A Historical Grammar of Poetic Myth, New York, Vintage Books. Griesman, B.E., 1987, The Achievement Factors, New York, Dodd Mead. Gruss K., 1901, The Play of Man, New York, Appleton. Gross R. ed. 1982, Invitation to Lifelong Learning, New York, Fowlett. Group for the Advancement of Psychiatry, 1958, August. The Psychiatrist's Interest in Leisure Time Activities. Report 39, New York. Gusson, J. 1967. The Psychodynamics of Leisure, in P.A. Martin ed., Leisure and Mental Health, A Psychiatric Viewpoint, p. 51-169. Washington, D.C., American Psychiatric Association. Habakkuk, H.J. 1955, Family Structure and Economic Change in 19th Century Europe. Journal of Economic History, 15 January 1-12. Haddis, N. 1960-1972, Humanism, The Greek Ideal and Its Survival. Gloucester, Mass., C.P. Smith. Hamilton, J.A. 1976, Attention and Intrinsic Rewards in the Control of Psychophysiological States. Psychotherapy and Psychosomatics, 27-4-61. 1981, Attention, Personality, and Self-Regulation of Mood, Absorbing Interest and Boredom. In B.A. Marr, ed., Progress in Experimental Personality Research, 10 282-315. Hamilton J.A., Heyer J. and Buchsbaum M.S., 1984. Intrinsic Enjoyment and Boredom Coping Scales, Validation with Personality Evoked Potential and Attentional Measures. Personality and Individual Differences 5-2, 183-93. Hamilton J.A., Holcomb H.H., and Della Pina A., 1977. Selective Attention and Eye Movements While Viewing Reversible Figures, Perceptual and Motor Skill 44, 639-44. Hamilton M., 1982, Symptoms and Assessment of Depression, in E.S. Pakel, ed., Handbook of Affective Disorders, New York, Guilford Press. Hamilton W.D., 1964, The Genetical Evolution of Social Behavior, Parts 1 and 2, Journal of Theoretical Biology 7, 1-52. Harrow M., Grinker R.R., Holtzman P.S., and Caton L., 1977, Anhedonia and Schizophrenia, American Journal of Psychiatry 137, 94-97. Harrow M., Tucker G.J., Hanover N.H., and Shield P., 1972, Stimulus Over-Inclusion in Schizophrenic Disorders. Archives of General Psychiatry 27, 40-45. Hasher L. and Zaks R.T., 1979, Automatic and Effortful Processes in Memory. Journal of Experimental Psychology, General 108, 356-88. Hauser A., 1951, The Social History of Art, New York, Knopf. Hebb D.O., 1955, Drive in the CNS, Psychological Review, July 243-52. Hegel G.F., 1798, 1974. Lectures on the Philosophy of Religion, together with a work on the Proofs of the Existence of God, Trans E.B. Spears, New York Humanities Press. Heidegger M., 1962, Being in Time, London, SCM Press. 1967, What is a Thing? Chicago, Regnery. Henry J., 1965, Culture Against Man, New York, Vintage. Hetherington E. M., 1979, Divorce, A Child's Perspective, American Psychologist 34, 851-58. Hilgard E., 1980, The Trilogy of Mind, Cognition, Affection, and Conation, Journal of the History of the Behavioral Sciences 16, 107-17. Hiscock E. C., 1968, Atlantic Cruise in Wanderer 3, London, Oxford University Press. Hoffman, J. E., Nelson B., and Hauk M. R., 1983, The Role of Attentional Resources in Automatic Detection. Cognitive Psychology 51, 379-400. Hoffman L. 1981, Foundations of Family Therapy, A Conceptual Framework for Systems Change, New York, Basic Books. Holmes T.H. and Rahe R.H. 1967, The Social Readjustment Rating Scale, Journal of Psychometric Research 11, 213-18. Howell, M.C. 1986, Women, Production, and Patriarchy in Late Medieval Cities, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Huizinga J. 1939-1970, Homo Ludens, A Study of the Play Element in Culture, New York, Harper & Row. 1954, The Waning of the Middle Ages, Garden City, NY, Doubleday. Husserl E. 1962, Ideas, General Introduction to Pure Phenomenology, New York, Collier. Huxley J.S. 1942, Evolution, The Modem Synthesis, London, Allen and Unwin. Izard C.E., Kagan J. and Zajon R.B., 1984, Emotions, Cognition, and Behavior, New York, Cambridge University Press. Jackson D.D. 1957, The Question of Family Homeostasis, Psychiatric Quarterly Supplement 31, 79-90. James W. 1890, Principles of Psychology, Vol. 1, New York, Henry Holt. Jaspers K. 1923, Psychopathologie Générale, 3D ed., Paris, 1955, Reason and Existence, New York, Noonday. Janes J. 1977, The Origin of Consciousness in the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind, Boston, Houghton Mifflin. Johnson R. 1988, Thinking Yourself into a Win, American Visions 3, 6-10. Johnson Samuel, 1958, Works of Samuel Johnson, New Haven, Yale University Press. Johnson Schooley, 1930, Pioneers of Freedom, An Account of the Icelanders and the Icelandic Free State, 879-1262, Boston, Stratford Co. Johnston L., Bachman J. and O'Malley P. 1981, Student Drug Use in America, Washington, D.C., U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, National Institute of Drug Abuse. Jones E., 1931, The Problem of Paul Morphy, International Journal of Psychoanalysis 12-23. Young C.G., 1928-1960, On Psychic Energy, in C.G. Young, Collected Works, Vol. 8, Princeton University Press. 1933-1961, Modem Man in Search of a Soul, New York, Harcourt Brace Jovanovich. Kahneman D., 1973, Attention and Effort, Inglewood Cliffs, N.J. Prentice Hall. Kant, I. 1781, 1969. Critique of Pure Reason, Trans N. Smith, New York, St. Martin's. Kaplan, B. 1983, A Trio of Trials in R.M. Lerner ed., Developmental Psychology, Historical and Philosophical Perspectives, Hillsdale, N.J., Earlbaum. Kelly J.R. 1982, Leisure, Inglewood Cliffs, N.J. Prentice Hall. Keyes R. 1985, Chancing It, Why We Take Risks, Boston, Little Brown. Keel N. 1969, The Universal Experience of Adolescence, London, University of London Press. Kierkegaard S. 1944, The Concept of Dread, Princeton University Press, 1954, Fear and Trembling and the Sickness unto Death, Garden City, NY, Doubleday. Klausner, S.Z., 1965, The Quest for Self-Control, New York Free Press. Kobasa, S.C., Maddie S.R., and Kahn, S. 1982, Hardiness and Health, A Prospective Study, Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 42, 168-77. Coate, K. 1970, Wishes, Lies, and Dreams, Teaching Children to Write Poetry, New York, Chelsea House, 1977. One Never Told Anybody, Teaching Poetry Writing in a Nursing Home, New York, Random House. Kohak, E. 1978, Idea and Experience, Edmund's Project of Phenomenology, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Cole, J. G. 1860, Kitschy Gamey, Wanderings Round Lake Superior, London. Kohlberg, L. 1984, The Psychology of Moral Development, Essays on Moral Development, Vol. 2. San Francisco, Harper & Row. Kolakowski, L. 1987, Husserl and the Search for Certitude, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Kubi, R. and Csikszentmihalyi M. in Press. Television and the Quality of Life, Hillsdale, N.J. Earlbaum. Kuhn, T.S. 1962, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Kusison, I. 1977, How Gambling Saved Me from a Misspent Sabbatical, Journal of Humanistic Psychology, 17-1925. LaBerge, S. 1985, Lucid Dreaming, The Power of Being Awake and Aware of Your Dreams, Los Angeles, Jeremy Tarker. Lang, R.D., 1960, The Divided Self, London Tavistock. 1961, The Self and Others, London Tavistock. Larson, R. 1985, Emotional Scenarios in the Writing Process, An Examination of Young Writers' Affective Experiences, in M. Rose ed. When a Writer Can't Write, pp. 19-42, New York, Guilford Press. 1988, Flow in Writing. In M. Csikszentmihalyi and I. S. Csikszentmihalyi, eds. Optimal Experience, Psychological Studies of Flow in Consciousness, pp. 150-71, New York, Cambridge University Press. Larson, R. and Csikszentmihalyi M. 1978, Experiential Correlates of Solitude in Adolescence, Journal of Personality, 46-4, 677-93. 1980, The Significance of Time Alone in Adolescence Development, Journal of Adolescent Medicine 2, 6, 33-40-40, 1983. The Experience Sampling Method, in 8T. Rice, ed., Naturalistic Approaches to Studying Social Interaction, New Directions for Methodology of Social and Behavioral Science, No. 15. San Francisco, Jossie Bass. Larson, R., Csikszentmihalyi M., and Grafe, R. 1980. Mood Variability and the Psychosocial Adjustment of Adolescence, Journal of Youth and Adolescence 9, 469-90. Larson, R., and Kubi, R. 1983. Television and Music, Contrasting Media in Adolescent Life, Youth and Society 15, 13-31. Larson, R., Manel, R. 1986. Daily Well-Being of Older Adults with Family and Friends, Psychology and Aging 1, 2, 117-26. Lasky, M. 1962. Ecstasy, A Study of Some Secular and Religious Experiences, Bloomington, Indiana University Press. Laszlo, E. 1970. System, Structure, and Experience, New York, Gordon and Breach. Lazarus, R.S., and Folkman, S. 1984. Stress, Appraisal, and Coping, New York, Springer. LeBon, G. 1895-1960. The Crowd, New York, Viking. LeCourt, D. 1977. Proletarian Science, London, New Left Books. Lee, R.B. 1975. What Hunters Do for a Living, in R.B. Lee and I. Dvored's Man the Hunter, pp. 30-48, Chicago, Aldine. Lienhard, M. 1947-1979. Ducamo, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Lefevre, J. 1988. Flow and the Quality of Experience in Work and Leisure, in M. Csikszentmihalyi and I. S. Csikszentmihalyi, eds. Optimal Experience, Psychological Studies of Flow in Consciousness, pp. 317-18, New York, Cambridge University Press. Legoff, J. 1980. Time, Work, and Culture in the Middle Ages, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Leroy Ladurie, L. 1979. Montaigne, New York, Vintage. Lessard, S. 1987. Profiles, Eva Zeisel, New Yorker, April 13, 6082. Levine, R.A., and Campbell, D.T. 1972. Ethnocentrism, Theories of Conflict, Ethnic Attitudes, and Group Behavior, New York, Wiley. Levi Strauss, C. 1947-1969. Les Structures élémentaires de l'apparent, Paris, Puff. Lewin, K. et al. 1944-1962, Level of Aspiration, in J. McV. Hunt, ed., Personality and Behavioral Disorders, pp. 383-78, New York, Ronald Press. Lewinson, P.M. and Graf M. 1973, Pleasant Activities and Depression, Journal of Consulting and Clinical Psychology 41 200-68, Lewinson, P.M. and Libet, J. 1972, Pleasant Events, Activity Schedules and Depression, Journal of Abnormal Psychology 79 291-95. Lewinson, P.M. et al., 1982, Behavioral Therapy, Clinical Applications, in A.J. Rush, ed., Short-Term Therapies for Depression, New York, Guilford. Liberman, A.M., Mattingly, I.G., and Turvey, M.T., 1972, Language Codes and Memory Codes, in A.W. Melton and E. Martin, eds., Coding Processes in Human Memory, New York, Wiley. Lieberman, M.A., et al., 1979. Self-Help Groups for Coping with Crisis, Origins, Members, Processes, and Impact, San Francisco, Jossie Bass. Lindbergh, C. 1953, The Spirit of St. Louis, New York, Scribner. Lips, G. F. 1899, Grundriss Psychophysik, Leipzig, G. J. Goshen. Lovinger, J. 1976, Ego Development, San Francisco, Jossie Bass. Logan, R. 1985, The Flow Experience in Solitary Ordeals, Journal of Humanistic Psychology 2-4, 79-89. 1988, Flow in Solitary Ordeals, in M. Csikszentmihalyi and I. S. Csikszentmihalyi, eds., Optimal Experience, Psychological Studies of Flow in Consciousness, pp. 172-80. New York, Cambridge University Press. Lumsden, C.J. and Wilson, E.O., 1981, Genes, Mind, Culture, The Revolutionary Process, Cambridge, Harvard University Press. 1983, Promethean Fire, Reflections on the Origin of Mind, Cambridge, Harvard University Press. Lumholtz, C. 1902-1987. Unknown Mexico, Vol. 1, New York, Dover Publications. Luria, A.R., 1976, Cognitive Development, Its Cultural and Social Foundations, Cambridge, Harvard University Press. Lyons, A.W., 1988, Role Models, Criteria for Selection and Life Cycle Changes, Unpublished Doctoral Dissertation, University of Chicago. McAdams, D. 1985, Power, Intimacy, and the Life Story, Homewood 111, Dorsey Press. McAloon, J. 1981, This Great Symbol, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Macbeth, J. 1988, Ocean Cruising, in M. Csikszentmihalyi and I. S. Csikszentmihalyi, eds., Optimal Experience, Psychological Studies of Flow in Consciousness, pp. 214-31, New York, Cambridge University Press. McDougall, W. 1920, The Group Mind, Cambridge, Cambridge University Press. McGee, A., and Chapman, J. 1961, Disorders of Attention and Perception in Early Schizophrenia. British Journal of Medical Psychology, 34 103-16. McIntyre, A. 1984, After Virtue, A Study in Moral Therapy, Notre Dame, University of Notre Dame Press. McClanahan, S. 1988, Single Mothers and Their Children, A New American Dilemma, New York, University Press of America. McPhillamy, D.J., and Lewinson, P.M., 1974. Depression as a Function of Levels of Desired and Obtained Pleasure, Journal of Abnormal Psychology 83 651-57. McVannell, J.A., 1896, Hegel's Doctrine of the Will, New York, Columbia University Press. Malcolm X, 1977, The Autobiography of Malcolm X, New York, Ballantine. Mall, J., 1985, A Study of U.S. Teen Pregnancy Rate, Los Angeles Times, March 17, p. 27. Mandler, G., 1975, Man in Emotion, New York, Wiley. Marcuse, H., 1955, Eros and Civilization, Boston, Beacon. 1964, One-Dimensional Man, Boston, Beacon. Martin, J., 1981, Relative Deprivation, A Theory of Distributive Injustice for an Era of Shrinking Resources, Research in Organizational Behavior 353-107. Marx, K. 1844, 1956, Karl Marx, Selected Writings in Sociology and Social Philosophy, ed. T.B. Bottomore and Maximilian Rubel, London, Watts. Maslow, A. 1954, Motivation and Personality, New York, Harper. 1968, Toward a Psychology of Being, New York, Van Nostrand. 1969, The Psychology of Science, Chicago Regnery, ed. 1970, New Knowledge in Human Values, Chicago Regnery. 1971, The Farther Reaches of Human Nature, New York, Viking. Maslow, A. and Honigman, J. J. 1970, Synergy, Some Notes of Ruth Benedict, American Anthropologist 72 320-33. Mason, H., Trans 1971, Gilgamesh, Boston, Houghton Mifflin. Massimini, F. 1982, Individuo Ambiente I Papakapauku della Nuova Guinea Occidentale, in F. Perusia ed. Psychologia ed Ecologia, pp. 27-154. Milan, Franco Angeli. Massimini F. Csikszentmihalyi M. and Carly M. 1987, The Monitoring of Optimal Experience, A Tool for Psychiatric Rehabilitation. Journal of Nervous and Mental Disease, 17-9, 545-49. Massimini F. Csikszentmihalyi M. and Delafave A. 1988, Flow and Biocultural Evolution. In M. Csikszentmihalyi is Csikszentmihalyi eds Optimal Experience Studies of Flow in Consciousness, pp. 60-81. New York, Cambridge University Press. Massimini F. and Ingaleri P. eds. 1986. L'esperienza quotidiana, teoria e metodo d'analisi. Milan, Franco Angeli. Mattis L. Arend R.A. and Srufa L.A. 1978. Continuity of Adaptation in the Second Year. The Relationship Between Quality of Attachment and Later Competence. Child Development 49, 547-56. Matson K. 1980. Short Lives. Portraits of Creativity and Self-Destruction. New York, Morrow. Mayers, P. 1978. Flow in Adolescence and Its Relation to the School Experience. Unpublished doctoral dissertation, University of Chicago. Mead, G.H., 1934-1970. Mind, Self, and Society. Ed. C.W. Morris. Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Mead, M. 1964. Continuities in Cultural Evolution. New Haven, Yale University Press. Medawar, P. 1960. The Future of Man. New York, Basic Books. Medvedev, Z. 1971. The Rise and Fall of Dr. Lysenko. Garden City, NY. Doubleday. Merleau-Ponty, M. 1962. Phenomenology of Perception. New York, Humanities. 1964. The Primacy of Perception. Ed. J. M. Edie. Evanston, Wonder 11, Northwestern University Press. Merzer, C. 1987. A Truly Modern Identity Crisis. Self, October 147. Meyer, L. B. 1956. Emotion and Meaning in Music. Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Mikalos, A. C. 1985. Multiple Discrepancy Theory, MDT. Social Indicators Research, 16 verse 347-413. Miller, G. A. 1956. The Magical Number 7 ± 2, Some Limits on Our Capacity to Process Information. Psychological Review 63 8197, 1983. Informavores. In F. Mocklip and U. Mansfield, eds. The Study of Information, New York, Wiley. Miller, G. A., Galanter, E. H., and Pribram, K. 1960. Plans and the Structure of Behavior, New York, Holt. Mintz, S. 1985. Sweetness and Power, The Place of Sugar in Modem History. New York, Viking. Mitchell, R. G. Jr., 1983, Mountain Experience, The Psychology and Sociology of Adventure, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. 1988, Sociological Implications of the Flow Experience. In M. Csikszentmihalyi and I. S. Csikszentmihalyi eds, Optimal Experience, Psychological Studies of Flow in Consciousness, pp. 36-59. New York, Cambridge University Press. Mitterauer, M. and Cedar, R. 1983. The European Family, Patriarchy to Partnership from the Middle Ages to the Present. Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Moitessier, B. 1971. The Long Way, Trans. W. Rodermore, London, Granada. Montaigne, M. de 1580, 1958. The Complete Essays of Montaigne, Trans. Donald M. Frame, Stanford University Press. Monty, F. 1969, African Masks, London, Paul Hamlin. Murphy, G. 1947, Personality, A Biosocial Approach to Origins and Structure, New York, Harper. Murray, G. 1940, Stoic, Christian, and Humanist, London, S. Allen and Unwin. Murray, H. A. 1955, American Icarus, Clinical Studies of Personality, Vol. 2, New York, Harper. Nabokov, P. 1981, Indian Running, Santa Barbara, Capra Press. Nakamura, J. 1988, Optimal Experience and the Uses of Talent. In M. Csikszentmihalyi and I. S. Csikszentmihalyi, ids. Optimal Experience, Psychological Studies of Flow in Consciousness, pp. 319-26. New York, Cambridge University Press. Nathanson, M. A. ed. 1963, Philosophy of the Social Sciences, New York, Random House. Neisser, U. 1967, Cognitive Psychology, New York, Appleton Century Crofts, 1976. Cognition and Reality, San Francisco, Freeman. Nell, V. 1988, Lost in a Book, The Psychology of Reading for Pleasure, New Haven, Yale University Press. Nelson, A. 1965, Self-Images and Systems of Spiritual Direction in the History of European Civilization. In S. Z. Klausner, ed., The Quest for Self-Control, pp. 49-103, New York, Free Press. Newsweek, 5 October 1987, New Yorker, 5th of October 1987, pp. 33-35. Nietzsche, F., 1886-1989. Beyond Good and Evil, Prelude to a Philosophy of the Future, Trans. W. Kaufman, New York, Random House, 1887-1974. Genealogy of Morals and Peoples and Countries, New York, Gordon Press. Nitecki, M. H. ed. 1988, Evolutionary Progress, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Noel Newman, E. 1983, Spiegel Dokumentation Persönlichkeitsstarke Hamburg Springer Verlag. 1984, The Spiral of Silence, Public Opinion, Our Social Skin. Chicago, University of Chicago Press, 1985. Identifying Opinion Leaders. Paper presented at the 38th ESO Mar Conference, Wiesbaden, West Germany, September 1-5. Noel Neumann E. and Strumpel B. 1984. Macht Arbeit krank, Macht Arbeit glücklich, Munich, Pieper Verlag. Nussbaum, H.C. and Schwab E.C. Eads, 1986, The Role of Attention and Active Processing in Speech Perception, in Pattern Recognition by Humans and Machines, Vol. 1, pp. 113-57, New York, Academic Press. Offer D. Ostrov E. and Howard K. 1981, The Adolescent, A Psychological Self-Portrait, New York, Basic Books. Orm J. E. 1969, Time, Experience, and Behavior, London, UIF. Pagels H. 1988, The Dreams of Reason, The Computer and the Rise of the Sciences of Complexity, New York, Simon & Schuster. Pareto of 1917, Trait de Sociologie Générale, Vol. 1, Paris. 1919, Trait de Sociologie Générale, Vol. 2, Paris. Parsons, T. 1942, Age and Sex in the Social Structure, American Sociological Review, 7 604-16. Piaget, J. 1952, The Origins of Intelligence in Children, New York, International Universities Press. Pina Chan, R. 1969, Spiel and Sport in Alton, Mexico, Leipzig, edition Leipzig. Pitts, Jesse, R. 1964, The Case of the French Bourgeoisie, in R. L. Kozer ed. The Family, Its Structure and Functions, New York, St. Martin's Press. Plato, Republic, Book 3, 401. Polanyi, M. 1968, The Body-Mind Relation, in W. R. Coulson and C. R. Rogers Eads, Man and the Science of Man, pp. 84-133, Columbus, Bell and Howell, 1969, Knowing and Being, ed. Marjorie Green, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Pope K.S. 1980, On Love and Loving, San Francisco, Jossie Bass. Pope K.S. and Singer J.L. 1978, The Stream of Consciousness, New York, Plenum. Prigogine I. 1980, From Being to Becoming, Time and Complexity in the Physical Sciences, San Francisco, W. H. Freeman. Privet G. 1983, Peak Experience, Peak Performance and Flow, A Comparative Analysis of Positive Human Experiences. Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 8045, 3rd 61-68. Radin P. 1927, Primitive Man as Philosopher, New York, D. Appleton and Co. Rothunda K. 1988, Optimal Experience and the Family Context. In M. Csikszentmihalyi and I.S. Csikszentmihalyi Ds. Optimal Experience, Psychological Studies of Flow in Consciousness, pp. 342-63. New York, Cambridge University Press. Redfield R. ed. 1942, Levels of Integration in Biological and Social Systems, Lancaster Pa. J. Cattell Press. 1955, The Little Community, Viewpoints for the Study of a Human Whole, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Renfrew C. 1986, Varna and the Emergence of Wealth in Prehistoric Europe. In A. Appadurai ed., The Social Life of Things, pp. 14-1-68, New York, Cambridge University Press. Rybot T.A. 1890, The Psychology of Attention, Chicago, Open Court Publishing. Richards R. Kinney D.K. Lund I. Bennett M. et al. 1988, Creativity in Manic Depressives, Cyclothymes, Their Normal Relatives and Control Subjects, Journal of Abnormal Psychology, 97, 281-88. Robinson D. 1969, The Climber as Visionary, Ascent 9, 4-10. Robinson, J.P. 1977, How Americans Use Time, New York, Prager. Robinson R.E. 1986, Differenza tra sessi e rendimento scolastico, Aspetti dell'esperienza quotidiana degli adolescenti dotati in matematica. In F. Massimini and P. Ingilleri Edis S. L'esperienza quotidiana, pp. 407-36. Milan, Franco Angeli. 1988, Project and Prejudice, Past, Present, and Future in Adult Development. Human Development 31-158-75. Rogers C. 1951, Client-Centered Therapy, Boston, Houghton Mifflin. Roosh B. 1988, Annals of Medicine, New Yorker, September 12, 83-89. Sachs O. 1970-1987, The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, New York, Harper & Row. Solins, M.D. 1972, Stone Age Economics, Chicago, Aldine Press. 1976, The Use and Abuse of Biology, An Anthropological Critique of Sociobiology, Ann Arbor University of Michigan Press. Santayana, G. 1986, The Sense of Beauty, New York, Charles Scribner's Sons. Sarbin T. ed. 1986, Narrative Psychology, The Storied Nature of Human Conduct, New York, Prager. Sartre J.P. 1956, Being and Nothingness, New York, Philosophical Library. Sato I. 1988, Bosozoku, Flow in Japanese Motorcycle Gangs, in M. Csikszentmihalyi and I.S. Csikszentmihalyi eds. Optimal Experience, Psychological Studies of Flow in Consciousness, pp. 92-117. New York, Cambridge University Press. Schaefer C., Coyne, J.C., and Lazarus R.S. 1981, The Health-Related Functions of Social Support. Journal of Behavioral Medicine 4, 381-406. Schaefer R. 1980, Narration in the Psychoanalytic Dialogue, Critical Inquiry 7, 29-54. Shire M.F. and Carver C.S. 1980, Private and Public Self-Attention, Resistance to Change, and Dissonance Reduction. Journal of Personality and Social Psychology 39, 390-405. Schiemberg L.B. 1988, Child and Adolescent Development. New York, Macmillan. Schlick M. 1934, Über das Fundament der Erkenntnis 4. English translation in A.J. Ayer, ed. 1959, Logical Positivism, New York Free Press. Schneider E. 1953, Coleridge, Opium, and Kubla Khan, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Scholem G. 1969, Major Trends in Jewish Mysticism, New York, Schocken Books. Schrödinger E. 1947, What is Life? The Physical Aspects of the Living Cell, New York, Macmillan. Schutz A. 1962, The Problem of Social Reality, The Hague, Martinus Nijhoff. Schwartz G. 1987, Beyond Conformity and Rebellion, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Schwartz N. and Clore G. L. 1983, Mood Misattribution and Judgments of Well-Being, Informative and Directive Functions of Affective States, Journal of Personality and Social Psychology 45, 513-23. Seligman M.E.P. 1975, Helplessness on Depression, Development, and Death. San Francisco, Freeman. Peterson C., Caslow N.J., Tannenbaum R.L., Alloy L.B., and Abramson L.Y. 1984, Attributional Style and Depressive Symptoms Among Children. Journal of Abnormal Psychology 93, 235-38. Silai H. 1956, 1978, The Stress of Life. Rev. ed., New York, McGraw-Hill. Siegel B.S. 1986, Love, Medicine, and Miracles, New York, Harper & Row. Simon H.A. 1969, Sciences of the Artificial, Boston, MIT Press. 1978, Rationality as Process and as Product of Thought, American Economic Review 68, 1-16. Singer I. 1981, The Nature of Love, Seged ed., Vol. 1, Plato to Luther, Courtly and Romantic, Vol. 3, The Modern World, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Singer J.L. 1966, Daydreaming, An Introduction to the Experimental Study of Inner Experiences, New York, Random House, 1973, The Child's World of Make-Believe, New York Academic Press. 1981, Daydreaming and Fantasy, Oxford University Press. Singer J.L. and Switzer E. 1980, Mind Play, The Creative Uses of Fantasy, Inglewood Cliffs, N.J. Prentice Hall. Smith K.R. 1969, Behavior and Conscious Experience, A Conceptual Analysis, Athens, Ohio University Press. Solzhenitsyn A. 1976, The Gulag Archipelago, New York, Harper & Row. Sorokin P. 1950, Explorations in Altruistic Love and Behavior, A Symposium, Boston. Beacon Press, 1956, Fads and Foibles in Modem Sociology, Chicago, Regnery, 1962, Social and Cultural Dynamics, New York, Bedminster, 1967, The Ways and Power of Love, Chicago, Regnery. Spence J.D. 1984, The Memory Palace of Matteo Ricci, New York, Viking Penguin. Spinoza, B.D. 1675-1981, Ethics, Trans. G. Eliot, Wolfboro N.H. Longwood Publishing Group. Spiro M.E. 1987, Culture and Human Nature. Theoretical Papers of Melford E. Spiro, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Steiner, G. 1974, Fields of Force, New York, Viking, 1978-1987. Martin Heidegger, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Sternberg, R.J. 1988, The Triangle of Love, Intimacy, Passion, Commitment, New York, Basic Books. Stewart K. 1972, Dream Exploration Among the Sinoi, in T. Rosak, ed., Sources, New York, Harper & Row. Strack, F. Argyle M. and Schwartz N. eds. 1990, The Social Psychology of Subjective Well-Being, New York, Pergamon. Sullivan H.S. 1953, The Interpersonal Theory of Psychiatry, New York, Norton. Sun W. 1987, Flow and You, Comparison of Csikszentmihalyi's Theory and Chuang-Tzu's Philosophy. Paper presented at the meetings of the Anthropological Association for the Study of Play, Montreal, March. Suppes, P. 1978, The Impact of Research on Education, Washington, D.C., National Academy of Education. Suttles, G. 1972, The Social Construction of Communities, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Sulai A. ed. 1965, The Use of Time, Daily Activities of Urban and Suburban Populations in 12 Counties, Paris, Mouton. Teilhard de Chardin, P. 1965, The Phenomenon of Man, New York, Harper & Row. Tessman, J. 1978, Children of Parting Parents, New York, Aronson. Thompson, E. P. 1963, The Making of the English Working Class, New York, Viking. Tillich, P. 1952, The Courage to Be, New Haven, Yale University Press. Tolstoy, L. 1886, 1985, The Death of Ivan Ilyich. Ed. M. Beresford, Oxford and New York, Basil Blackwell. Tompkins, S. 1962, Affect, Imagery, and Consciousness. Vol. 1, The Positive Affects, New York, Springer Verlag. Toscano, M. 1986, Scuola e Vita Quotidiana, un caso di selezione culturale. In F. Massimini and P. Inghileri Edis, L'Esperienza Quotidiana, pp. 305-18. Milan, Franco Angeli. Tuff, A. 1978, Adults' Learning Prospects, A Fresh Approach to Theory and Practice in Adult Learning. Toronto, Ontario Institute for Studies in Education. Toynbee, A.J. 1934, A Study of History, London, Oxford University Press. Treisman, A.M., and Gelade, G. 1980, A Feature Integration Theory of Attention, Cognitive Psychology 1297-136. Treisman, A.M., and Schmidt, H. 1982, Illusory Conjunctions in the Perception of Objects, Cognitive Psychology 14, 107-41. Trivers, R.L., 1972, Parental Investment and Sexual Selection. In B.H. Campbell, ed., Sexual Selection and the Descent of Man, 1871 and 1971, pp. 136-79. Chicago, Aldine. Tucker, R.C., 1972, Philosophy and Myth in Karl Marx, 2nd ed., Cambridge, Cambridge University Press. Turnbull, C.M., 1961, The Forest People, Garden City, N.Y., Doubleday. 1972, The Mountain People, New York, Simon & Schuster. Turner, V. 1969, The Ritual Process, New York, Aldine, 1974. Liminal to Liminoid in Play, Flow, and Ritual, An Essay in Comparative Symbology, Rice University Studies 63, 53-92. USA Today, 1987, An Interview with Susumu Tonegawa, Oct. 13th, P2A. U.S. Depth of Commerce, 1980, Social Indicators 3, Washington, D.C., Bureau of the Census, U.S. Depth of Commerce, 1985, Statistical Abstracts of the U.S., 1986, 106th ed. Washington, D.C., Bureau of the Census, U.S. Depth of Health and Human Services, 1988, Vital Statistics of the United States, 1985, 11. Hyattsville, Mindy, U.S. Depth of Health, U.S. Depth of Justice, 1987, Uniform Crime Report 725, Washington, D.C., Depth of Justice, Valent G.E. 1977, Adaptation to Life, Boston, Little Brown, Vasari G. 1550-1959, Lives of the Most Eminent Painters, Sculptors, and Architects, New York, Random House. Veenhoven R. 1984, Databook of Happiness, Boston, Dordrecht, Rydell. Veroff J. Duvan E. and Kulka R. A. 1981, The Inner American, New York, Basic Books. Vane P. ed. 1987, From Pagan Rome to Byzantium, Vol. 1 of A History of Private Life, P. Aries and G. Doobie, Jen Eads, Cambridge, Mass., Belknap Press. Von Bertalanffy, L. 1960, Problems of Life, New York, Harper & Row, 1968, General System Theory, Foundations, Development, Applications. New York, G. Braziller, von Uexküll, J. 1921, Umwelt und Innenwelt der Tiere, 2nd ed., Berlin, 1957. Instinctive Behavior, London, Methuen. Von Wolf, C. 1724, Vernünftige Gedanken von dem Kraften des menschlichen Verstandes, Hall im Magdeburg, Rengerische Buchhandel. English translation, 1963, by R. Blackwell, Preliminary Discourse on Philosophy in General. Indianapolis, Bobbs Merrill. Vygotsky, L.S. 1978. Mind in Society, The Development of Higher Psychological Processes, M. Cole, V. John Steiner, S. Scribner, and E. Suberman, Eads, Cambridge, Harvard University Press. Waddington, C.H. 1970. The Theory of Evolution Today, in A. Koestler and J.R. Smythes, Beyond Reductionism, New York, Macmillan. Waitskin, F. 1988. Searching for Bobby Fischer, New York, Random House. Whaley, A. 1939. Three Ways of Thought in Ancient China, London, G. Allen and Unwin. Wallace C. Booth C. Ludke M. and Taylor E. 1985, Children Having Children, Time Desier 9, 78-90. Juan T. W. ed. 1964, Behaviorism and Phenomenology, Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Warner R. Trans 1965, The Persian Expedition, Baltimore Penguin Books. Watson B. Trans 1964, Chuang Tzu, Basic Writings, New York, Columbia University Press. Weber M. 1922, Die protestantische Ethik unter Geisteskapitalismus, in ICB Moore ed., Gesammelte Aufsätze zur Religionssoziologie, Vol 1, Die Wirtschaftsethik der Weltreligionen, pp. 237-68, Tübingen, English translation 1946 in H. A. Girth and C. W. Mills Eads, from Max Weber, Essays in Sociology, Etuden 67-301, New York, Oxford University Press. 1930-1958, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, London, Alan L. Unwin. Weitzman, M.S. 1978, Finally the Family. Anab of the AAPS 435-60-82. Wells, 1988, Self-Esteem and Optimal Experience, in M. Csikszentmihalyi and I. S. Csikszentmihalyi, eds. Optimal Experience Psychological Studies of Flow in Consciousness, pp. 327-41, New York, Cambridge University Press. Werner, H. 1957, Comparative Psychology of Mental Development, Rev. New York International Universities Press. Werner H. and Kaplan B. 1956. The Developmental Approach to Cognition, Its Relevance to the Psychological Interpretation of Anthropological and Ethnolinguistic Data. American Anthropologist 58 866-80. Whiten, P. 1984. Day 1, New York, Simon & Schuster. White, L. A. 1975, The Concept of Cultural Systems, New York, Columbia University Press. White, R. W. 1959, Motivation Reconsidered, The Concept of Competence, Psychological Review 66 297-333. Wickland, R. A., 1979, The Influence of Self-Awareness on Human Behavior, American Scientist 6782-93. Wiener, N., 1948-1961. Cybernetics, or Control and Communication in the Animal and the Machine, Cambridge, MIT Press. Williams, R. M. Jr., 1975, Relative Deprivation, in L. A. Koser, ed., The Idea of Social Structure, Papers in Honor of Robert K. Merton, pp. 355-78. New York, Harcourt, Brace, Jovanovich. Wilson, E. O. 1975, Sociobiology, The New Synthesis, Boston, Belknap Press. Wilson, S. R. 1985, Therapeutic Processes in a Yoga Ashram. American Journal of Psychotherapy 39 253-62. In Press. Personal Growth in a Yoga Ashram, A Social Psychological Analysis. The Social Scientific Study of Religion, Vol. 2, Whitfogel K. 1957, Oriental Despotism, New Haven, Yale University Press. Wolf, T. 1987, The Bonfire of the Vanities, New York, Farrar Straus, Wood 1954, Great System of Yoga, New York Philosophical Library. Wundt, W. 1902, Grundzüge der Physiologischen Psychologie, Voller 3. Leipzig. Wynne, E. A. 1978, Behind the Discipline Problem, Youth Suicide as a Measure of Alienation, Phi Delta Kappan 59 307-15. Yankelovich, D. 1981, New Rules, Searching for Self-Fulfillment in a World Turned Upside Down, New York, Random House. Ziegler, E. F. and Child, I. L. 1973, Socialization and Personality Development, Reading Mass, Addison Wesley. Zuckerman, M. 1979, Sensation Seeking, Hillsdale, N.J., Earlbaum. About the author. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi is professor and former chairman of the Department of Psychology at the University of Chicago. For the past 20 years, he has been involved in research on topics related to flow. Funding for these studies has come from the Public Health Service and various private grants, primarily the Spencer Foundation. In addition, a great deal of interest in his work has been building outside academia, spearheaded by substantial articles in Psychology Today, The New York Times, The Washington Post, The Chicago Tribune, Omni, Newsweek, and elsewhere. He is the author of Beyond Boredom and Anxiety and co-author of The Creative Vision, The Meaning of Things, and Being Adolescent. Dr. Csikszentmihalyi is a member of the National Academy of Education and National Academy of Leisure Sciences. He has been a senior Fulbright Fellow and currently sits on several boards, including the Board of Advisors for the Encyclopedia Britannica. He has appeared on a number of foreign television networks, such as the BBC and RAI, Italian television, and has taken part in several hour-long segments of Nova.